Moving on. Sir Keir Starmer spent the pandemic pretending to be Prime Minister by hosting those ridiculous, spontaneous press conferences in which he called for more needless lockdowns. Now that he's the actual Prime Minister, the great hope is that now he's got the top job, he would be a bit more straight with the public. Less spin, less virtue signalling, less naked politics. No such luck. Arriving in Washington, Starmer joined the conspiracy of silence around an increasingly confused President Joe Biden and continued to gaslight anyone with eyes and ears by saying the president was, quote, on good form and that their meeting was supposed to be 3/4 of an hour in length but wound up being the best part of an hour. A lot of verbal gymnastics going on there. Isn't 3/4 of an hour the best part of an hour anyway? Make it make sense. Sir Keir is either naive about President Joe Biden or just being plain dishonest as he goes on to tell the press that Biden is not too old to be president. Starmer's words, not for the first time, come back to haunt him. As hours later at the NATO conference, Biden introduces the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky as Vladimir Putin. Take a listen.
And now I want to hand it over to the president of Ukraine, who has as much courage as he has determination. Ladies and gentlemen, President Putin.
Oh dear, that's awkward. He also had a strange description of his deputy president, the Vice President, Kamala Harris. Take a listen.
I wouldn't have picked Vice President Trump to be vice president, but I think she was not qualified to be president. So let's start there.
Vice President Donald Trump, she's not qualified to be president. I didn't realise that Trump had transitioned. I guess it is 2024. Yes, according to Sir Keir Starmer, Biden is on great form and not too old to be president. This is the same Sir Keir Starmer who wants over 80s in the House of Lords to retire. Make it make sense. Starmer there once again usurped by his own bland, phony rhetoric. Whilst Joe Biden is America's president, he's our president too. He's the leader of the free world, and that's why this matters, not just to Americans, but to you and me as well. This is about the safety of the world. And as for Biden's latest Ukraine howler, I'm no military expert, but if you can't tell the difference between an ally and the enemy, then you're probably not going to win the war. Aidan McGee, what a nightmare.
I know, look, I've given up kind of being critical of Biden now because I think that it's got to the point where it's very sad. I'm not the first person to say it, but this isn't a recent thing either, Mark. I noticed this in the first months of his presidency back in the start of 2021. He clearly was suffering cognitive difficulties.
Yes.
You saw even on the televised debates last week, Donald Trump, who normally would go for hell for leather, he actually withdrew slightly because he recognised that this was actually something quite unedifying that we were watching on television. And so every time he's put out on screen, we see that he makes a mistake. The policies don't help either, it has to be said. I think his decision to withdraw from Afghanistan brought about a lot of the international troubles that we've seen around the world since then. But it's time to step aside, and I just don't think, unfortunately, they can see anybody who can possibly win an election. This is the Democrats I'm talking about here.
Alex, what do you make of Sir Keir Starmer's comments that Joe Biden is not too old to be president and that he was on great form?
Well, first of all, the best part of an hour, I reckon he thought he was getting 45 minutes and he got 35 or 32 and he thought, I can actually say that's the best part of an hour.
Exactly right.
The worst part.
I think the thing is with President Biden now is he's under an immense pressure not to screw it up. And when you're told, don't get it wrong, it puts even more pressure on a man who quite clearly shouldn't be doing the job because there's something going on. As I said last time I was on the show, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a neurologist, I'm not a doctor, but I think we can all see, and we've probably seen, a lot of us have seen this with our elder relatives, there's something going on here. And can you imagine the pressure that he's on? But as far as Keir's concerned, what does he do? You can't very well have the job for a week and then go and slag off the president.
You can't.
Keir Starmer's been
not stupid. He'll know this.
He's been put in an impossible situation, and any journalist worth their salt will say, so what did you think? So he's got to come back with something that's not going to offend the Americans and not going to make him look an idiot.
I agree, but I think that Reem, should be the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, because I would
vote for you.
Oh, bless you for that. You've obviously had a drink, but God bless you. It's Friday night. I would actually give the media a straight bat. I would say the health of the president is a matter for the American people. That would be my answer. What I wouldn't do is I wouldn't say he's on great form. I wouldn't say what a lot of the talk show hosts in America have been saying, which is he's as sharp as a tack, smarter than he's ever been. That is lying.
It is lying. And also what's really interesting is that CNN themselves have come out and said maybe this guy needs to step down. I think that you're right in that the actual matter for themselves is for the American people. But this is about the international arena. This is about global hegemony. And this is about international politics. And whether we like it or not, the United States is one of the most powerful countries in the Western world, if not the most powerful country, the leader of the Western world. And therefore we must ensure the President of the United States, and it's in all of our interests to do so, has some kind of cognitive ability. The fact that Biden...
Some kind of cognitive ability.
Some kind of great self-forgiveness.
I think many people, Reem, are going to choose Trump in November over Biden purely because Trump actually doesn't have dementia. That's basically how low the bar is now. But he's not mentally ill.
I think the problem here is, though, that he's already made a couple of pretty serious gaffes. And there's a long time to go between July and November. You don't know what is coming round the bend. So I think that's why a lot of people, high-profile people like George Clooney this week have said maybe it's time to step down.
Exactly. Reem, it's quite a sad situation where we need Hollywood actors like George Clooney to say it like it is.
Yes, I mean,
George Clooney has said he must stand down.
I think Hollywood actors tend to poke their nose into politics sometimes and they tend to get it wrong, but I think George Clooney is right in this instance. I think what's interesting about this in this perspective is, yes, it's sometimes quite funny to watch him make mistakes. Yes, it's quite interesting from an American perspective, but we're talking about the future of the free world here.
Correct.
Biden needs to go.
Yeah, so can we just go back briefly, Aidan, to our Prime Minister, though? I mean, he's not being honest by saying Joe Biden was on great form.
No, of course
he's not too old to be president.
He's in an invidious position.
It's a habit of a lifetime from Starmer, isn't it?
Yes, it is a little bit, and it maybe sets the tone for the rest of his term. We don't know, but we all want to give him a chance and get behind him if we possibly can.
Don't you think you would have got a smarter answer from someone like Rishi Sunak?
No, I don't. Actually. I think he would have said
I don't think Rishi Sunak would have said he's on great form.
Can we just say, look at the debate between Sunak and Starmer. The fact that Starmer effectively defended the NHS by saying that, even if his family member was literally on death's door, he would not use private healthcare because he loves the NHS so much.
True.
Starmer is absolutely terrible at media. He's a terrible politician. I'm not saying his policies are not going to be great. We're going to see what that looks like over the next few months. But actually, specifically, he's not very good at answering questions like that. I undoubtedly think Sunak would have answered the question better.
OK, of course, Sunak is gone. Starmer is in the hot seat. Of course, plenty would argue that the Prime Minister had to give a diplomatic answer about the President in order to preserve the special relationship.